How to configure a shared server? Once we know that we would like to set up the shared server, it's very easy to set up the shared server. You go to your init file, init.ora file. If you are using SP file, then you may want to kind of use the alter system command. If you are using the P file, then you would like to change this file. Whichever way, the first initialization parameter is called as dispatchers. Dispatchers, and this is where you specify how many dispatchers you're going to start. So if you decide to start 2 dispatchers, then you have to specify this equal to, and protocol is equal to TCP. The dispatcher is the one who is communicating with the actual client. Okay, he is like the waiter in this our restaurant example. So he is the one who is communicating with the client. So he is the one who is actually going to talk a specific language or a protocol. So he should speak a TCP/IP language. And then here, here we are going to specify the actual dispatchers is equal to maybe 4. So that's it. That's all you need to specify. Dispatchers is equal to, in parentheses, protocol is equal to TCP, and dispatchers is equal to 4 or 2 or 3. Once this initialization parameter is set up, when your instance starts, it will start 4 dispatchers. They will be named as D000, then D001, D002, and D003, starting from 0 to 3, 4 dispatchers. So this is one initialization parameter that you need to set up, and the second initialization parameter you need to set up is the shared servers. And you just specify shared servers is equal to 3 or 4 or 5, whatever that number is. Shared servers. Once these 2 things are done, our configuration is done. That's all there is that we need to do for shared servers. There are certain other parameters are also, but they are not mandatory. But these 2 are the ones that we need to set up. I will also mention one of those mandatory parameters called as, let us say, max dispatchers. If max dispatchers is set to 10, what is the meaning of this? Actual total number of dispatchers that we have set is 4, and the max dispatchers is set to 10. It means once we have started our database with the 4 dispatchers, later on, after checking our performance views, which are $V dispatcher and $V shared servers, we realize that we need one more, one more dispatcher. Then we can increase it from 4 to 5. How do we increase it? We just say alter system set dispatchers is equal to same thing, and dispatchers is equal to 5. So from that point, when we say the alter system command, there would be 5 dispatchers. If we think that 5 dispatchers is not enough, then we need to create 6 of them. You need to get a chair, man. We need to create 6 of them. Then you again do alter system command unless or till the point of 10 that you reach. If you want to increase it from 4 to 11, you cannot increase it. So this is like that SGA max kind of a thing, that you can increase your SGA target up till the max size. So this is the artificial limit that we have done. Then can we not set it beyond 10? You can set it beyond 10. Yeah, come on. You can set it beyond 10, but then you have to shut down the instance. You have to shut down the instance. So this is what the max dispatchers business is. And similarly, there is a max shared server also. That also goes with the same thing, max shared server. So this is how you configure the dispatcher. Now the next thing is how to see it in action. Or monitoring. Monitoring is, how do you see how many people are connected to what and what? Let us say now in $V session. In $V session, if 100 users are connected, you will see 100 rows in $V session. There is a column called as a server column. Okay, so obviously there is a username, there is a SID, there is a serial number, all those things are there, and there is a column called as a server. In that server column, you will see a word called as dedicated or none. So if user A is connected through a dedicated server process, you will see a word dedicated there. If user B is connected through a shared server process, you will see a word none there. I don't know why they have not put word shared server there, but that means he is not using the dedicated. So this is how you can kind of monitor, what is or who is connecting as a dedicated or who is connecting as a shared server. Now, so this is the monitoring that I would say. Then one more thing that I had mentioned, that whenever we set up the shared server, it is a good idea, not a mandatory thing, but it is a good idea to set up a large pool. So because once we set up the large pool, the PGAs, they are actually called as UGAs there, user global area, they will go and sit inside the large pool. So how do you set up the large pool? Large, then pool size. Large pool size 100 megabytes. Now this can be, this 100 megabyte can be more than required, or this can be less than what is required. Okay, so how do you decide what is the correct size of large pool? It's again mostly a trial and error thing. In the older days we used to set up something here and then we'll monitor it. How do we monitor it? We monitor it, I had mentioned this thing to you, $SGA stat. What is the $SGA stat show? It shows you the size of this, size of this, size of this, and size of large pool and everything else. And it also shows one line, it will show two lines for large pool. One is the first line for large pool, it will show the free large pool. And it will say maybe 30 megabytes. Free large pool is 30 megabytes and then used is the 70 megabytes for free memory. And then used, they don't call it used, this is session heap, which is maybe remaining 70 megabytes. So this shows you that even right now 30 megabytes of large pool is free. And since 30 megabytes of large pool is free, this is in $SGA stat, it means our large pool is properly configured. If you see very less free, then maybe it is coming very close to the actual requirement. But do set up the large pool there. Now we will see a little later on during the performance tuning point of view that really this is probably not required. Okay, because we have something called as automatic SGA sizing and all that stuff. So we'll see those things, what can be done and all those things. So that is a different discussion. But this is where you can see whether the large pool is properly sized or not. So that is how you do the sizing of the large pool. And now probably the most important thing. Like let us assume that dedicated connection. A dedicated connection in the shared server environment. A dedicated connection in a shared server environment. So what am I saying? That we have a shared server configured on the server side. So we have a listener here. We have two dispatchers. And you have, let us say, 3 shared servers. This is the configuration that I have right now, my shared server configuration. But there is one VIP customer who is going to load huge amount of data. He requires a dedicated server process. He is not going to connect to the dispatcher and give the request. He is going to connect to the dedicated server process. The listener should start a dedicated server process for him and he will connect to that. When he is finished, this dedicated server process will die off. This guy will also die off. So can we do this thing? Yes, the answer is we can do this thing. And how do we do this thing? This is done in our TNS names, the client side. The client side has the TNS names file. So TNS names.ora file has a parameter there called as server is equal to dedicated. This line has to be put in your TNS names.ora file. If you don't know where exactly to put this line there, then I would suggest use netCA. Okay, netCA is the client tool which will allow you to configure the TNS names.ora file, and then it will ask you whether you want a dedicated server connection or shared server connection, that is where you specify the server is equal to dedicated. And once this is done, then any client, or that means any program that is going to start from this machine, because this is a file for a machine, not for just a program. This is a file sitting on that machine. So from that machine, any client, whether it's SQL Plus or Toad or some SQL loader program, anything that goes to the server will get a dedicated server connection. And therefore he will contact the listener. Listener will realize that even if the database is set up in a shared server environment, this person is requesting a dedicated server connection. He must be a customer, and therefore you start a dedicated server process for him, bypass all the dispatchers from him, and he will directly contact the dedicated server process. So this happens only when you type this line inside the tnsnames.ora file. There is another way to do that also using SQLnet.ora file. But that's pretty much what I wanted to kind of show you about or mention about the dispatchers. Okay, I think that's our discussion. So it's more of a discussion. We have been discussing this for the last 1 hour. We need to understand, do we really need to set up the shared server environment or not? My recommendation is that first set up the dedicated server environment. Only when you have need to connect more users and you have less RAM, then think about shared server. And in that situation, all you need to do is set up those 2 initialization parameters and your job is done. ठीक है?
Can we discard this service from sys user? The dedicated server should not be assigned